people are going to small volcanic Italian islands to make some boom boom. Good morning, mushrooms, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers, sisters, mothers, misters, and to all my cousins out there around the world. It's time to plug in, get this train chugging. Biden weighs in on the next debate. To weigh in on something is to voice your opinion. It's like everything is a scale and it's in balance. Then you put your weight on one side or another to try and tip the decision in that direction. And so basically it's just a nice, fun, and fancy phrasal verb for stating your opinion. Alright, let's move on, learning more in the caption below. The Democratic nominee says the second presidential debate should not be held if Trump still has COVID-19. Well, the main point here, I'm not going to comment actually on the content, however, we've got a beautiful modal here, should not, and then passive be held. And it's interesting because yes, we hold meetings, hold conferences, hold debates. Oh, lost my hand. Hold debates. Why do we hold a meeting, hold a conference, hold a debate? I don't know, but often it is used in the passive. Held by whom? By the Presidential Debate Committee or something. There is an official body that governs these debates, or at least attempts to. Alright, moving on. Trump's erratic behavior ignores the pandemic and its victims. Erratic means that it follows, it's a beautiful, beautiful adjective, meaning that it follows no set schedule, routine, or pattern. It's a synonym and a very beautiful word meaning unpredictable. Unpredictable, it means that you cannot count on it, you cannot depend on it, you cannot rely on it. And in these times of uncertainty, it would be nice to have some predictable patterns of behavior and something seemingly sound, solid, and stable upon which we can build our hopes and help dispel some of our fears and that uncertainty that exists in these strange, terrifying times. Alright, let's move on. Michelle Obama's blunt message about Trump. Great adjective as well here, blunt. It means something that is not, it has no sharp or pointy parts on it. It's in a physical, literal sense. And so sometimes when you're watching these police shows, they see that the victim was murdered, struck in the head with a blunt object. Because maybe it made a big dent in their head. It's not like it was a knife which cut or something that stabbed. They were hit on the head with a blunt object, a blunt instrument, like the leg of a chair. But in this case, it basically means you're being very, very frank. And if you're being frank and sincere, you're not sugarcoating things, then it means that it could hurt somebody's feelings. And well, we know this little snowflake is very, very sensitive. Let's move on. After he ended the stimulus talks, stocks immediately tanked after his tweet announcing it. If stocks tank, they took a nosedive. That's like a term from when a plane goes nose first into the ground, plunging, plummeting. And actually this comes from the British Empire in their experience in India because they had large cisterns or underground water tanks. Yeah, if it tanks either way, it means that it's going underground. And that's very, very low. And low is not good for most things unless you're playing golf. Then a low score is good. Stocks, they don't like to be low, they like to be high. Moving on. China needs an economic revolution to deliver Xi's ambitious climate agenda. Now, you might know this adjective ambitious. Today is a day of adjectives, isn't it? Yeah, talking about people and their careers. If somebody's ambitious, they desperately want to succeed and they will try, and they will keep on doing what they're doing until they've reached the level of success that they want. However, when we're talking about a climate agenda or other sorts of plans, it means that it is something that's going to take a lot of work, probably a lot of investment, and a lot of time to achieve, if it's achieved at all. Moving on. China's global reputation has plunged in the wake of the pandemic. To plunge means to go downward and or forward very quickly. It's so when you dive into a pool, that is you're plunging into the water head first. So their reputation has fallen. It has suffered damage, basically. It has been tarnished, we could say. It has put some blemishes on their nice, shiny reputation in the wake of the pandemic. We've had it on the show countless times. When a boat moves through water, creates this V-shaped wave pattern behind the boat, and that is the wake. And so if something's happening here, in the wake of it, that means after it, following it, and as a consequence of it. We usually use it with sort of negative things that's happening in the wake of the catastrophe, in the wake of the recession, in the wake of the pandemic. Top U.S. officials were the, or a, driving force behind migrant children's separation, so says the New York Times. But not just behind it, they were a driving force. The force, what that's pushing it forward. And to drive something, much like when you drive a car, it means that you're making it go forward and controlling the direction that it goes. Each and every one of us have different factors or ambitions, motivations that drive us. And so, what drives you to do what you do? What drives you to get out of bed in the morning? India tests a missile that launches a torpedo hundreds of miles away. And so, the way I understand this is they launch a missile which goes around the world somewhere, and then it goes into the water, and then launches a torpedo, which is basically an underwater missile. That's cool. That's like some stuff that you dream of as kids. Like, I want sharks with laser beams. Whoa! A torpedo, that underwater missile used to sink ships. And so we can actually use that as a verb to torpedo somebody's plans, because their plan is a boat and it's floating and maybe even moving forward, going somewhere. But if you torpedo that boat, it's going to sink. And so you basically ruin somebody's plans. Speaking of charges, I talked about filing charges against somebody. The man has been charged in the death of an 80-year-old after a mask dispute in a bar. Yes, I don't know the exact details, but there was a dispute, a disagreement, maybe a little tussle, a fracas between two people, and an 80-year-old man ended up dying as a result of it. Well, either way, the other person involved in the situation has been charged with something. I don't know if it's manslaughter, wrongful death, murder one. No, because it wasn't premeditated. Just leave the old people alone. Apparently, approximately 10% of the world may have been infected. By what? By the virus. It's a nice little making a conjecture coming up to now, may have been infected already. And so it seems, judging by the numbers in every country around the world, that 10% is going to continue growing, if not surging and or skyrocketing. Speaking of surging, its online sales have surged as people turn homes into offices and schools. Ta-da! Mind blown. Yes, we need furniture. Where are we going to turn? To IKEA, because they build fairly decent stuff cheaply. Surge to move forward and upward in a dramatic, rapid fashion. It's on the show almost every day. Here's an interesting story. A driver chucks his bumper at a rival during a race. Apparently he was knocked out of the race, or his car was crashed, probably involving some other driver. That would be his rival, the person he was competing against. And as his rival came back around, this man decided to throw the bumper from his car at the other guy who was speeding past him very, very quickly. Yes, the bumper is that front thing on a car and the back thing on a car, which is used for bumping other cars when you're parking. No, you shouldn't bump other cars when you're parking. However, that's why we call it a bumper, because it protects the rest of the body of the car from these minor impacts. And this guy was very upset. It's a funny little gif. Check it out. Ta-da! Eskimo pie is getting rid of its derogatory name. The wake of all of this woke movement, we've got people like Uncle Ben's and Aunt Jemima and all sorts of other brands removing what seem to be ethnic or racist slurs or imagery of minority people. And the word Eskimo is actually a derogatory term for the Inuit peoples of the North. Forgive me if I'm still messing this up. However, derogatory, and it means that it is critical and demonstrating a lack of respect for. Show a lack of respect and or maybe even humiliate the recipient of said term. Let's move on, and I'm going to have another sip of coffee. Powdered coffee. Italian islands are becoming sex pilgrimage sites. Ooh, exciting. The small volcanic islands between Italy and Sicily, for example, Stromboli, which are volcanic and highly volcanically active, and people are going there because apparently the heat and the rumblings of the earth activate something inside and make them want to procreate. And so normally when we think of pilgrimages, we think about people traveling, going to some sort of holy place, like the Canterbury Tales, going to see the relic of some saint, or the famous Camino de Santiago de Compostela, or people going to performing the Hajj and going to Mecca. Well, these people are going to small volcanic Italian islands to make some boom boom. Sorry, couldn't resist. Moving on. Americans on holiday are scrambling to escape Mexico as the hurricane approaches. That hurricane is looming ominously and rolling towards Mexico, and they are scrambling to get out. To scramble, we've had it many times on the show, to scramble usually to do something. There it is, to escape. And scramble actually is for when you're going up a hill and you're using all four of your limbs, your hands and your feet, often performed on loose rocks because it's difficult to find stable footing. But it implies making a lot of concerted effort to do something and possibly making very little progress. It's often done in erratic sort of fashion as well. All right, let's keep it rolling. We had reckless twice on the show yesterday, and now we've got recklessness. Trump's COVID-19 recklessness is costing the U.S. Yeah, well, markets are tanking. There's instability on Wall Street. That means people could be losing a lot of money. Otherwise, it's costing us our sanity as well, because he has further continued to divide the nation. Reckless means careless squared. It's next level carelessness, a complete lack of care despite the danger and or tragic consequences that could arise as a result of the actions that are taken. Often goes with reckless abandon. Yeah, meaning you just abandon or leave away, leave aside, throw away, discard all cares, and then just barrel forward. Yes, I love the lessness. I love double stacked suffixes. That's just me though. If something is grotesque, it usually means absolutely disgusting. Like if something is twisted and deformed. And so it could mean hideously ugly, often in a scary or funny way. It's just a nice colorful headline here. Let's move on. White supremacists remain or are still the deadliest U.S. terror threat. Weird white supremacist, right-wing separatist nut jobs. And so yes, they are still the deadliest U.S. terror threat. More deadlier. Oh, God. Even though people love to point fingers. Yeah? Alright, moving on. Facing tougher terrain in conservative-leaning appeals courts. Maybe you don't like what the other court decided, so then you can appeal the decision in the appellate or appeals court, and maybe then they will overturn the ruling of the first court. The appeals courts are more conservative-leaning. Yeah, we've got the Democratic or liberal, and then the conservative or Republican, and these ones are leaning in that direction. They're not overwhelmingly on this side, but tougher terrain. It's going to be a rocky road, a bumpy road. The terrain is the land, right? And it's not going to be a smooth ride. It's not going to be a smooth shot or a smooth journey. It's going to be tumultuous with lots of ups and downs and bumps along the way. It's less than a month till the election. Uh-oh. A boost, to boost, is to push something up like that. And so the pandemic is boosting probably their sales. Yeah, because we're talking about money makers, and so it's boosting their sales. It may have also reduced their costs. A boost, to boost, lift your mood, boost your spirits. All right, and DocuSign is cashing in on the end of pen and paper. Ta-da! As people are not going places and doing things physically on paper, more and more people are tending to use electronic signatures, and DocuSign is one of the industry leaders in this sort of trend, I guess. There's Signature It, which I do believe is based here in Barcelona, Barcelona and Silicon Valley. But then we also have DocuSign to cash in on something. It's not always related to money. It could be just getting some sort of advantage as the result of a situation. Often used in a negative sense, implying that they're doing something a little bit maybe scandalous, maybe nefarious, maybe a little bit naughty, but it doesn't have to be. either. Many of us are cashing in on the fact that we don't have to go to the office every day and using that extra spare time to pursue other business interests or hobbies like this. So that brings us to the end of the headlines for today. For English Otherwise, that was breaking down the news. As you know, we're putting these back up onto YouTube with a 1-day delay. If you like what we do, click the like, the follow, the subscribe, the little bell icon. If I don't see you sooner, I'll see you at 8 a.m. tomorrow for another round of breaking down the news. And stay safe out there. Bye-bye. Yeah, stop the stream. I'm hungry. Breakfast.